Hey guys, this is Aaron from the Spillway.
This is Zac. Talking over each other.
We are your hosts for the Spillway, and hopefully you guys enjoyed our last one on chivalry.
Yep.
Tonight we're talking about the ego that we have, and when is it good to, how much ego should we carry, how much should we not, when are you in the green for it, when are you in the red for it? What do you think?
So yeah, we're going to be talking about ego, especially the male ego, and the inverse of being humble, and that back and forth constant. I think ego is a good thing to a point. I am not an individual who's super egotistical in a lot of things, but there are certain things that I am egotistical about. Certain prowesses and skills that I have honed through the years that I am slightly egotistical about. Not in a dickhead kind of way,
right.
But I'll admit that I have skill in that area above the average Joe. But I'm also very I'm also very humble. That's the least humble thing you could possibly say. But trying to keep myself in check and being humble. If I don't know something, or if I know a little bit about a topic, but I'm talking with somebody or learning from somebody who knows so much more about it,
right.
I shut up and listen. I think there's a fine line, and I think it all kind of ties in together between listening and what you can put forth. But I think it's healthy to have a little bit of an ego because it shows confidence.
Absolutely. Well, and that's your self-esteem, right?
Correct.
I mean, that's where our egos. That's kind of what makes us who we are.
Absolutely.
And I think in a sense, though, I mean, humility is the greatest weapon in the world.
Absolutely.
I mean, you can solve so many issues with humility, but like you said, confidence is always a good thing. A gal's not going to like a guy with no confidence.
No, absolutely not.
But then again, if your crap doesn't stink, then they're probably like,
it's kind of the difference.
Too much.
It's kind of the difference between a physical wet noodle and hard steel. You have to be somewhere in the middle. Right? If you have no confidence, if you have absolutely no ego in anything, then you have no confidence. You're just kind of meek and mild and bend with the times and ebb and flow with whatever, right? But if you are over egotistical, overconfident, then you're rigid as steel and nobody can tell you anything because you know it all.
Right.
We all know those people who know it all. Nobody wants to deal with them. They're not. People like that are not the most easy to converse with.
Right. Well, and I think, it's one of those deals. I like to think I can call out my own BS.
Correct.
If I'm off on a tangent somewhere, I'd like to think that, boy, man, put the brakes on here and like, dude, shut up.
Yep.
What are you talking about? That's just a self-reflection on me. And I'm
Absolutely.
just like, do I even know what I'm talking about? Or do I just perceive and think I know what I'm talking about, but I'm full of crap at the same time?
It's always good to challenge yourself. It truly is. When you are going to talk about a subject, when you're going to learn something, or you're going to teach, right. Challenge yourself in your thoughts and what you know about it. If you have questions, ask them of yourself first. If you know that other people are going to ask you questions, write them down. Ask yourself those questions that someone else might ask first, so you have an answer for them.
Write it down. I like that.
Yeah, I'm a big proponent of writing everything down.
Just carry a little notebook around with a pen and just jot stuff down during the day.
It's the best thing. When ideas hit you, don't let them fade. Write them down. Type them out. Send yourself a text. If you've got a significant other, send them a text and say, please ignore notes. Whatever, right? A lot of us have notes on our phone. Put it down in a note. I take notes constantly.
Yeah.
Because I will forget what I was thinking about 20 minutes later because I'll be on to the next thing.
Right.
Maybe I have ADHD. I don't know. But that's
that could be.
Because I have the ads. But it just depends, right? Like ego can be a positive, but ego more often than not is a poison pill.
Right.
And it's I wouldn't even say poison pill. It's almost like a cancer. It can develop and just grow.
So it's like we need to find the yin and yang.
Yeah, the happy medium.
The happy
middle
medium
ground.
in the middle of how much is good ego and how much is bad ego. Right. And finding, you even mentioned, you said it perfect, in balance.
Yep.
And, I think in order to balance something, you're going to have the good and the bad.
Absolutely.
Right? How else could we live throughout life. When bad things happen, we got to have good things here to equal it out, right? Because if we just have a ton of good things going in our lives and not enough bad things going in our lives, it's like, that's not reality.
Well, adversity is the father of invention, if I remember correctly. If I'm misquoting that, I feel bad, but I believe it's adversity is the father of invention, or necessity is the father of invention, something along those lines. But adversity is necessary, truly. We all want better for our kids, right? We don't want them to go through the same crap we've gone through. We don't want to hand them the same traumas that we've gone through. We don't want to continually pass on a generational curse, if you will, or something like that.
Right.
However, if you never go through anything in life, you have no baseline to appreciate the good. One of the simplest ways to put it that I ever had it told to me is you got to have rainy days to appreciate the sunny ones. Because if all you have is sun, you have no metric for appreciation. And just like if all you have is rain, you have no metric to appreciate the rain.
How can we not have compassion without suffering?
Correct.
It doesn't exist.
Correct. Yeah. But no, I would argue it does exist. There are people out there who have never suffered, which is, I don't want to say that's bad, because good for them for not suffering, but those are some of the most incompassionate people I've ever met.
100%.
There are some people who are, relatively speaking, hard is hard, and everybody's kind of dealt with their own thing, right? But there are some people who've never really lived paycheck to paycheck, or had to change a tire on the side of the road when it's raining outside and the oil slicks out there and there's nobody, or been caught in a snowdrift in the middle of nowhere, or the list goes on and on of example we could give, right?
Take the job you don't want, but it's the job that's going to get you to the next step.
Correct. Or, not knowing where your next meal is coming from. Things like that. Like, there are people out there who, and there's quite a few people out there who have been that way.
Absolutely.
Which is not necessarily a negative, but they can't connect with their fellow man as much because they have never been where they have. And that's where a lot of people
very fortunate.
What is it? Volunteer work. A lot of people try to fill that gap with volunteer work because it puts them in the trenches with people that have going through stuff, and they can comprehend a lot more even if they've never been themselves.
Right.
And I think that's great. If you can't, I'm not saying you should manufacture adversity. I'm not saying you should sell all your things. I am not God. I am not Jesus. I'm not going to tell you to sell all your things and follow me on this path. However, I do believe that there is a way to appreciate more what people are going through on a baseline. If you are an individual who has never really had struggle and strife in any meaningful capacity, and you feel like you need to connect more with people, volunteer work's a great way to do it. It puts you on that same level and seeing firsthand. It's almost like field journalism, and I hate journalists. I don't care if you're a journalist. I'm sorry. We don't hate our journalists enough. But that's neither here nor there. Don't get me started. But it's kind of like old school field journalism, like almost like war correspondence, right?
Yeah.
Being out there involved in horrible, horrible things. This is a lot different, but being involved in the community and seeing firsthand. And I think that's a huge importance. If you don't understand what some people go through, and you're missing that piece, or you want understanding, that's a great way to get it without actually having to put yourself through it.
Oh, for sure.
But you're still not going to be able to 100% understand until you've gone through something.
Well, and I like how you put it. If you've never related to people like that, or if you've never experienced that, I mean, you don't know.
No.
And I think, I watched a show the other day, and it's like, join the Peace Corps.
Yeah.
Maybe I should have joined the Peace Corps. I mean...
That's all you. I'm not enough of a hippie, but that's okay.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, opportunity, talk about culture shock.
Right.
And then if you did the Peace Corps for 6 months, if they even allow 6 months, maybe it's a year.
I have no idea.
When you come back from an experience like that, your outlook on so many things is going to be way different.
Yeah.
And I'm not even just saying like the top privileged person who comes from a family that makes over $500,000 a year. It's just, even if you brought up in a good home, you always had a roof over your head, shoes on your feet, you went to school, you got a background, you got a resume built up, you're kind of set up in a good spot and you're comfortable.
Yeah.
But man, I tell you what, and I think that's where egos grow.
Yeah. Is
when we get very comfortable in our environments. How many people are willing to say, you know what? The heck with this stuff. I'm out. I am completely not necessarily giving up, but this is how I've been. Here's my comfort zone. I'm going to push myself out of my comfort zone. And that takes courage to do that. That is so hard to go out of your comfort zone, but it's so easy to get stuck in your comfort zone.
We have so many catchphrases and sayings I personally have picked up throughout life and bits and pieces from where. But I've always really liked comfort kills. Comfort does kill.
Absolutely.
Comfort is a slow death and it kills.
Yes.
Kind of counter to the Peace Corps idea, which not specifically talking about the Peace Corps, but just as an idea, right?
Just an idea, yeah.
A similar one would be the military. Now, granted, completely paradigm shift from what the Peace Corps stands for, but the military puts you through adversity. Mm-hmm. I can't tell you how many young men, and I've never served, grew up around it, but never served. I just want to make that adamantly clear, not even claiming to have ever been a veteran. But I know a lot of veterans. Mm-hmm. I grew up around the culture, and I know a lot of young guys I went to high school with who went and served, and they chose a different path than I did, and it changed them for the positive because it instilled in them a level of adversity. It instilled in them a level of it took courage to go. It took courage to make it through, and it took courage to do what they did, even serving a minimum amount of years. Right. But they came back as men with bonds that were never there, understanding why they operated the way they operated in their minds a lot better, learned a lot, and were more secure in themselves and confident in themselves. So, I'm not going to sit here and bang the war drum and say, go join the military.
Right.
But it is also a very positive thing. I believe truly.
Right.
Joining the military, you're going to have adversity. You're going to have struggles. There's going to be detrimental things. It is night and day different from what we were talking about with volunteer work in the Peace Corps. It's a completely separate animal. But if you feel like you're missing something in life, if you feel like there's a calling that you're missing and you need to live life, let's say.
Yeah.
That's a great baseline.
100%.
There's a lot of different things, and that's just two of thousands of ways, right?
Right.
For those of you who aren't of that capacity, and trust me, neither of us are in that world. We both have had very traumatic pasts, and maybe one day we'll get into that on this, but not right now. But
we're still here.
We're still here.
We're still standing, baby.
And if you were looking for, or if you're not that person who's looking for something, you're like, I've been through enough stuff, I don't need to go through anymore. Then cool, we'll just talk. Drop what your experience has been. What has been the most impactful strife you have gone through in your life?
Right.
What particular thing in your life made you or made a part of you who you are nowadays, if that makes any sense? That was like a double entendre. But what have you been through in your life that altered you for a positive, even if it was a negative thing, but it impacted you to where you became a better person, a better operating person, or a better operating man?
Well, and it's kind of one of those things where there's you got two choices that happen to you. Hey, man, here's the card you're dealt with.
Yep.
It sucks. And it's really easy in that situation to start pulling the I can'ts.
Yep.
I can't.
The world's out to get me.
The world's out to get me, That is a bunch of crap.
Right.
I mean, you got to stare adversity in the eyes. Yes, you can.
Yes.
Yes, you will. Now, is it going to happen at the snap of a finger and in the moment?
It's going to take time.
It takes time. Patience is everything. And that's even a lesson I've learned lately. And I keep telling myself that every day. And it's like, hey, man, good things are going to come.
Absolutely.
But if you don't have the patience to allow good things to come, nothing is going to build your way because you're trying to force things to happen, and you cannot force a relationship or really any phenomena in your life from happening because it's just not going to be there.
No, you can't force friendships. You can't force a relationship with a partner. You can't
never.
You can't force learning. You can't force anything. A new skill set you're learning.
Yeah.
Whatever it may be, you can't. It's you ever heard the term how to eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's I want to say it's an old military euphemism, but it could not be. But I've been told that forever. Is how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You look at the whole picture, but you focus on one thing at a time. Mm-hmm. You can look at the whole picture, but if you hyperfixate on the whole picture, you're going to get overwhelmed, you're going to walk away, and you're not going to learn or do anything.
Well, and I think that's what develops such an ego.
Absolutely.
Sometimes, and it's like you get too overconfident.
Right.
And you get yourself to a point where, first impressions might seem kind of good. Well, strong foundation, solid character. Well, first appearances aren't always the truth.
No.
And
there's plenty of times I've reading the back of a book. Sounds like a great book.
Yeah.
And then you get into it in 2 chapters in, you're like, this is the most boring book I've ever read. But the synopsis of it sounded amazing. It was a first look.
Yeah. But once you actually dive in, you get to know and you get those feelings. And if you jump into something so quick, you learn it while you're in the middle of it.
Right.
And if it's something you're learning that you don't like when you're in the middle of it, well, that's when your ship starts getting holes in the floor.
Yeah,
it's when you start sinking.
I think you have to have a baseline of I want to do this, excitement about doing something, right? Mm-hmm. And if you don't have that baseline of excitement about something you're going to start, I don't think it's something you should necessarily pursue. Because if you go into it unexcited, it's going to be so much harder to retain and actually push through whatever it is. Yeah. But if you go in excited and it winds up being harder, being something that you didn't think it was, right? Whatever that is, that thing is, learning something, a relationship, whatever it is, right? Hell, a friendship, something, right? Ask yourself if you are looking at it the correct way, or you just question it because it's hard. Just because something's hard doesn't necessarily mean that you won't like it or enjoy it or it's good.
Some people like a challenge.
It just might just be more challenging. But if it is something that you're not willing to put effort into and it's completely different from what you thought it was going to be, have that honest conversation with yourself.
It's kind of like this quote I heard today on trusting your gut instinct. Yep. And if you don't trust your gut instinct, boy, the prices could be heavy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there could be the biggest price in the world. And I'm not talking about the price of money. The price of time.
Yep.
If you have a gut instinct and something's off and it's sitting there telling you, boy, I don't know, man. But you're like, it's something in your mind that's saying, oh, ignore the gut feeling. You'll get over it. This storm will pass. This will get there. What if the storm continues to come back?
Right.
And you're just sitting here and letting the storm build and build and build.
You just get into a loop.
It's like the Ghostbusters. With what did they call that thing where they put the ghosts in?
That
big old trap.
Yeah. You're talking about the new one, right? Where they kept
the original one.
Right. But the new one when they overfilled it and it burst. Yeah.
And then it blew up, and you sit there, you got all that pressure, and it's like, holy shit!
Yeah.
What do I do, man? And then I'm sitting here, and I'm like, boy, if I just would have been out of this 3 years ago and not have gotten myself here. Now, we all make decisions.
Yes.
Sometimes for the good or the bad. But if they're a decision that you made and, you're still vertical and breathing and rocking at life and sitting there continuing it, then that probably means that you made the right decision.
Correct. Yeah, as long as you're able to move forward, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not moving forward, if you're staying stagnant, you're retreating. If we're not advancing, we're retreating. That's just that.
How can you have 1 foot moving forward yet still keep 1 foot backwards?
Yeah, you're dragging something with you.
You're dragging something with you, and screw that, man.
So that goes into ego, right? Ego can be a boat anchor. Ego can be a heavy weight you're dragging behind you. Being so egotistical and not realizing you're not God's gift at everything you do will make you an unlikable person, and most people probably don't want to deal with you. It will make you unlikable in your career. It'll make you unlikable in relationships. It'll make you unlikable in friendships. It will make it to where you become a pariah that nobody wants to spend time with.
No.
And by the time you actually figure it out, you'll be alone.
Well, then that just becomes your reality.
Correct.
Because you've never challenged yourself. You've never taken the time to stop and think and be like,
is it me?
Is it me? Maybe it's something wrong with me that keeps ending these things in the way that they're doing. It could. We said it could be professionally. It could be in your friendships. It could be in your relationships.
Any facet of life.
Any facet of life. And I think everyone needs that check, because if you're just sitting there, if you're a yes man,
Yeah.
And you just sit there and just go with the flow. Oh, it's keeping the status quo. I'm going with the flow. You know, nothing's really changing. Nothing's happening. I'm just sitting here stuck just by being the yes man. Yep, sounds good. Yeah. Or going with the group because they did it. Man, it's the person you're going to find success with. That's the one that's going to say, no, I'm not going with the flow. Is it going to make enemies? Yeah, it's probably going to make enemies.
100%.
But, you know, and that happens. And now I'm not sitting here going out and picking fights with someone.
No.
But if you're true to yourself and if you're real, you know, you're going to promote that.
Yep.
Even if you're going along with your friends, and they could be your best friends in the world, and you just go with it because your friends are doing it, but inside you're something sitting here is telling me, no, that's wrong. If you know it's wrong, but you do it anyway,
still wrong.
Those are like the little, what are the little rodents that sit and run off the cliff and into the water? Lemmings.
Yep.
You're just a lemming.
Yep.
That's all it is. You're a continual lemming. Well, I'm going to say this because it makes me look good.
Yep.
You know, well, this sounds good and it's appealing. You know, got some new group of friends here. They seem to be jumping on that. After a while, they're going to catch on to it.
Well, yeah, because you're putty. You mold yourself to wherever environment you're in. So you really have no substance. When you're that kind of person, you have no substance. You got
nothing to contribute.
You were just putty. You were just agreeing with whatever the popular thing is.
That's boring.
I'll tell you what, there are people who I have friends who I completely disagree with their outlook on almost everything when it comes to belief system or how they view relationships or how they view the world, politics, whatever it is. I have friends that are completely counter to what I believe.
Yeah.
But I'm still friends with them because we have way more in common than we don't.
They're still
I appreciate
our sisters.
And I appreciate how they will not waver. Mm-hmm. Might I think that they're wrong in the certain thing they believe? Maybe, maybe not. Mm-hmm. But I can at least appreciate that they are staunchly loyal to their belief system,
right?
And they can also explain to me why they believe that way.
Yeah.
It's not just, I believe that way because someone told me to. It's, I believe that way because I have challenged it, or I have learned on my own, or it's how I was raised, but I also looked into why it, all those things, right? And I think that's important.
Challenge yourself.
Yeah. 100%.
You know, it can be hard to challenge yourself because we get so comfortable being in our comfort.
Oh, yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. If going and taking a walk in the park is your thing to calm you down, boy, go take that. Go do that park walk 6 times a day.
Absolutely.
You know, if your thing is just to get away and escape and read a book, get away and escape and read a book. There is nothing wrong with taking a break from things.
No, absolutely not.
But when it comes time where you have to act, and when it comes time to shine, that's my new word. I like that word, shine. I love shine, man. Shine bright, people. But when it comes time to go to work, you have to be prepared to go to work. Right. You know, you have to get your mind right. And sometimes taking a break from life is recentering yourself.
Right.
Sometimes when you're recentering yourself and finding balance, and I've learned this a lot with me, that's the time, especially if you have an ego or you carry an ego, you can sit and think about it.
Yep.
Am I super over egotistical?
Right.
Perhaps I am. And then I sit and think, get your journal out.
Yep.
Get your journal
notes,
out.
I'm telling you, notes are amazing.
Get your book, jot down your notes, and sit and make a list of things of how I might have a giant ego. Write them down.
Yeah.
Take a look at them. Be true to yourself. You know, be true to yourself and sit and think, oh, man, I am kind of like that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be like that.
Right.
And then think of instances throughout your life. You're like, well, that relationship didn't work out. No. Now I know why it didn't work out. Right. You're being a jerk, man.
Right.
But like I said, and it takes courage to call yourself out. But I think,
absolutely.
I think we got to do it. You got to keep yourself in check, because if you're sitting there just always being a yes man and going with the flow and doing the things because that's what the expectations are for you, and you don't want to lose that status. If you're afraid to lose that status, you shouldn't have that status to begin with. I agree.
That's
just me.
Ego's such a weird thing, and going into the humble aspect is, if you don't think you have an ego, but you are putty, you are that person that just ebbs and flows with everything, then you really don't stand for anything. No. It's okay to be confident and have a little bit of ego. So the same way he was saying about, or you were saying about that checklist, I would argue do the same if you feel like you don't have an ego and see where you're lacking there as well.
Absolutely.
See where that happy medium, and that happy medium is going to be different for everybody too. It's not a catch-all blueprint. You have to figure it out for you. It's not what works for John is going to work for James, and what works for James is going to work for Dave.
It's our life. It's our mind.
Yeah, it's everybody's different. Everybody's an individual. There's no set standard for it.
No,
but you have to kind of take an internal look, and it's okay to take stock every now and again. I mean, if you're never taking an internal stock of how you are and why you are the way you are, and figuring out how to better yourself in any capacity, then you're not growing. No. You're just staying stagnant. You're staying stagnant. You're not moving forward. You're just stagnant.
That's boring. Well, here I am, found myself in this situation for the third time again. Oh, that's great. I wonder how this is going to turn out. Maybe it'll work out for you.
Right.
They always say third time's a charm.
Yeah.
But
if you never try, you also never know.
This is true.
And if you're never trying, even the same... Now, don't get me wrong. There is a level where it's insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. But also, if you never try, you never fail. If you never fail, you never learn. And if you never try, you also never will have the chance to succeed.
Right.
Both those things are true at the same time.
Well, and I think one thing that comes with going back, if you're just the yes man and you do things to show face so that you look good. Well, what about the times when that doesn't work anymore?
Right.
What about the time when someone calls you out for your nonsense and says, what's the card game when you lie and you try and
is it bullshit? It's
bullshit. Bullshit. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and you sit there and oh yeah, I got these cards.
Yep.
No, you don't. BS.
Yep.
And and then when those times come, and that could be after time passes.
Right.
Your people around you, oh yeah, well this is this person, here's what they are, and here's what they stand for. But at the same time, it's well, now you're put on the spot and you need to act. I can't act because I don't know how to, because I've always just went with the flow.
Yeah, I've always peeked off of someone else doing something.
I've always peeked off someone else doing something. Yeah. Yep. And then if you get to a point to where, because they always say you got to pick and choose your battles, right? Yep. What battles you're going to pick and choose. Well, if you're a super high egotistical person, you're going to choose the battles that are going to probably find yourself in some trouble.
Absolutely.
If you're a little bit lower on the ego totem pole, you might, and a bit more balanced,
right?
You might sit and process and think, oh, well, maybe I'm going to pick this fight because here's A, B, and C chances that I'm going to find some success with it. Or do I sit and go from the other one and I'm just so angry and upset and I lash out and I go ahead and do it anyways, and it's man, I wish I would have thought through A, B, and C before I did that. Yeah. Because actions speak super loud, and I would rather have my actions make sense at the time instead of making apologies later. Because if you're making apologies later, and I'm not saying it's not bad to make an apology, but if I'm picking my fight, I want to put an end to it then. I don't want to have apologies coming after the fact. Right. I chose this fight because I was confident in it and I knew I was going to have success with it. I don't want to be backtracking that and be well, I took a stance here, but I'm going back on it and I'm going to apologize.
Choose a righteous fight. Don't just choose a fight to fight.
Because then that shows your worth. Yeah. What do you stand for? Well, I don't know what I stand for.
One of my favorite quotes. Yet again, drawing a blank, who the hell says it? But it's if you don't stand for anything, or if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
100%.
And it's so true. If you don't stand for anything, you will fall for whatever someone tells you.
Yeah.
Because you have no baseline. You have no code.
Right.
As men, we have to have a code.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer. As a man, you have to have a
man code.
Man code, yes. But you have to have a code. You have to have a code you live by.
Like the pirate code?
I was going to say the Knight's Oath.
Oh.
I really like the Knight's Oath.
That's not a bad one.
But
the pirate code's good too.
Pirate code's cool too. Or like Bushido code or whatever. Not those things specifically, but you have to have a code. Yeah. You have to have a code you live by, a set of rules and honor and guidelines that you live by as a man that keep you in check. Because without it, we're lawless. We're anarchists. We're just, there's nothing. The big eat the weak.
A purpose.
Yeah. Something that's a metric to hold you true.
Right. I like that.
Yeah, we have to have that. It is in our nature.
This is our credo.
Yeah, it's a credo. You have to have that. You have to have a baseline. If you don't, you will not succeed.
I also think be flexible with it too. Or what do you think? That's a good way to put it. How flexible should you be? I mean, should be full on staunch. No, this is it, or we can't have anything else. Or is there some give and take in?
I think you have to have certain hard lines you are not willing to go past, whatever that is. Boundaries, hard set. Well, not only boundaries for yourself, but boundaries for people coming in as well. Hard set lines that are do not pass go. Hard set lines that are like, I will not put up with this. I will not deal with this. I am not okay with this. But then other things be a little bit more graceful with. Be a little bit more willing to grow and accept and change and adjust your way of thought.
You mean be humble?
Correct.
Oh, God, what a great word.
Yeah, there you go. Being humble. Accepting that you don't know everything about that particular subject.
100%.
And accepting, okay, maybe I'm wrong in this. Or maybe I can adjust my way of thought. Don't change who you are, though, because I'm a firm believer. See,
we can't change who we are. We are who we are.
And it's interesting because a lot of people say, "Oh, people change who they are all the time." No, I'm a firm believer. No one truly changes who they are. People put on masks. People put on masks and pretend to change, but in a moment of weakness or a moment of struggle or a moment of strife, they'll go back to who they are.
Yeah.
Every single time. I've seen it my entire life, every single time.
Back to their comfort.
Now you can grow. You can be a different person than you were
100%.
10 years ago, 20 years ago, when you were a kid, whatever. You can be a slightly different version of yourself, but you're still yourself.
You're still you still grew up in the same town.
Correct.
You had the same parents.
You can't change those things.
And if you try and change your past and those experiences are what got you here to this point in life. And if you're still vertical and breathing air,
what is it? Jelly Roll says you can't. His song. You can't unlive where you're from.
Yeah.
You can't unlive what you've been through.
No.
You can't make it all go away. You can't magically. I'm a different person today.
Trauma does not just disappear.
No.
You can learn to deal with it.
Yes.
But it doesn't go away.
I have a friend. I just had this conversation the other day, which is kind of scary. I have a friend who has an idea about trauma, and I don't know if he stole it or if he came up with it, but it's beautiful. He said trauma is a hammer. So trauma is a hammer, and the only thing about the hammer that you know is that it got passed down from you from your forebears, and you will pass it down inevitably to whoever you leave behind.
I get it. Great analogy.
The difference is this hammer that you have to have in your hand. You have no choice about it. Some people decide to use it for good works. Some people decide to build things with it. If that's physical, build things up, or if it's proverbial, building things.
Yeah.
Using it as not a handicap, but as a tool for positivity.
Yeah.
Opposite side of the coin, some people use it as a wanton tool of destruction. They swing blindly and destroy everything in their path. And when they're asked why, well, because I have this hammer that's glued to my hand. What do you want me to do? They use it as a crutch. They use it as an excuse.
Right.
We're all going to have, most of us are going to have trauma at some level in our life.
Of course.
It is your choice what you do with that trauma as a tool. And I really like that. It was a beautiful concept, and I absolutely loved the idea.
Yeah.
And it's so true. You can either be a victim and blame the world, or you can use your trauma to build yourself and use it as a steel core to be a better man.
Oh, someone else made me do this.
Yep.
I went along with it. They convinced me.
I was just doing my job.
That's what the thing behind your eyes and between your ears is to think. No one convinces you of nothing.
No.
Because someone could convince you. They could be the most straight and narrow guy on paper and have the best job in the world and completely pull the bottom out from underneath you and give you the shock and awe, and you're like, well, boy, man, that was a smart guy.
Look at history. How many times throughout history?
He got you to believe him.
Right. How many times throughout history has there been, I was just doing my job. I was just following orders. I was just following somebody else. That's not an excuse. It's truly not. It's not. If you know something's wrong, it's wrong.
Yes.
That is that. There is black and white in this world. For those of you who disagree with me, I'm sorry, you're wrong. There's black and white in this world. There is good and there is evil, and there is none, and there's not the between. Now, there is gray. There is difference, but there are things that are just black and white.
Yeah.
There's just good and evil. Period. Done. Over.
Yeah, I mean, I had friends and loved ones and people I cared about growing up. Built trust with them.
Yep.
You know, have great conversations with them. You're their friend, right? You built that relationship up, and then one day, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like you hear they broke the law or got in trouble,
right?
And you're like, no, man, that's not true. He didn't do that. No, he did do it.
Correct.
You just didn't know about it,
right?
You know. And then in that moment comes, it's like, well, you lose trust, you lose faith.
And you start questioning.
You start
did you ever really know
things. Did I ever really know him? But then again, at the same time, I'm sitting there and I'm like, God, was I that gullible?
Right. Right. You start looking in at yourself going, well, how did I not see that? Is there something wrong with me?
And some people are good at hiding it. Some people are good at hiding it.
So that's exactly it. You can and can't. It's both true at the same time. You can look at yourself and be like, man, I missed some huge red flags. Mm-hmm. I missed some things that were always there.
Right.
You can be ignorant of those, and you can choose to be ignorant of those inadvertently because they're your friend, or
it could be a loved one,
or your loved one, friend, whatever. Right. Significant other.
Could be
whatever. Right. There are times you may have just overlooked things because you care. Right. So that can be true. Also, can be true that they never showed those traits. Mm-hmm. You could not have known.
Yeah,
there was no way to know. But what it boils down to is you cannot hold yourself accountable for another person's actions unless you are culpable in those actions. And what I mean by that is unless you are standing there. Unless you are standing there or involved in the depravity that they are doing, in the wrongdoing that they are commencing and committing, then you are exactly the same as them. And even though they were the one doing the act, if you knew about it truly and decided not to either completely back away from it and be no part of it, or propagate it and be a part of it, if you knew about it and you were involved in it, you're just as guilty as they are.
You've allowed it to continue. You gave it energy.
Correct.
You
entertained it.
You entertained it.
You were just as guilty as at fault as they are, and that doesn't have to be anything illegal. That
no.
For example, I'll out myself. I had a buddy who was a womanizer. He dated multiple women at a time, 2 or 3 at a whack, and it always set bad with me. But did I stop it? Yeah. No, we were friends. Hell, there were times I would drive him like his little chauffeur between houses and dates and pick him up as a buddy because that's what a friend does. He helps out a brother. I was a lot younger then, a lot stupider.
Right.
And I was like, no, he's a good guy. Yeah, I don't agree with this thing that he does, and I think it's a little messed up, and it's not what I would do. But no, I was just as culpable as he was. I might as well have been dating 4 or 5 women at a whack at the same time. It's not how I am.
No, of course not.
But I might as well have because I was condoning it.
Yeah.
I was not rebuking him. I was not telling him, dude, you know what? This isn't what I agree with. This is wrong.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be a part of this.
Well, and I think, it sounds like your buddy kind of had that ego up there.
He was very egotistical.
And this is one instance where it's like, maybe taking a break from life is a good thing. Slowing down, fixing yourself.
Yep.
And it takes time. And one thing that promotes that's probably heartache. Yeah, sure. Hey, you got caught by all these grouse 3 or 4 times. Okay, hopefully you've learned your lesson now.
Yep.
And it's time to mature and move on, And I think, and sometimes, just me recently here, I took a break from social media. Yep. I had to get completely away from it.
As we sit here filming a podcast.
As we sit here filming a podcast. Temporary break. I had to get away from friends. I had to get away from the politics.
Oh, yeah.
I had to shut it all out.
Yeah.
You know, I
had to recenter.
I had to recenter. I still am recentering.
Yep.
And the more that I discover as I recenter has been truly a gift.
Yep.
Where I'm sitting here and I'm down and I'm depressed and I got questions everywhere. And if I would have done this differently and I would have put this here and done that, it just would have been better. No, it wouldn't have, because I was still in that same state of mind.
Yep.
I didn't grow. I didn't learn anything.
No.
Now I've taken the time to learn stuff, to read. I've gotten into meditation. If prayer's your thing, that's huge for that.
Yep.
Going for walks. You have to take time for yourself.
Absolutely.
And some people, and your friends might think, oh, they're just sitting around moping. No, they're not moping. And it might be for the first time in their life, they're trying to figure themselves out.
Yep.
And come to center. They know something's wrong. They've noticed it. There's a problem. How can you grow from it? How can you learn from it? You're not going to change who you are because you're a good person. We hope, for the most part, I think most people out there are a good person.
Yeah.
They just want to be left alone. They want to be safe. They want to be secure, you know, and they want to have friends and people that care about them, right? I think that's a good majority of people. Some people are just solo people, like running. They like doing their own thing and to be left alone. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. You know,
I don't disagree.
But it just seems like, you know, especially with me, I needed to fix myself, man.
Yeah.
Getting that journal pad out again. I was writing, I was typing letters, I was looking at myself, and I was asking myself these questions. Is there something about me that I need to change?
Yeah, there's something that needs to be fixed.
That needs to be fixed, right?
And nobody can fix you but you.
Exactly, because it's our happiness.
Yes.
If you go and look for happiness from someone else, that's not going to happen.
You're never going to have happiness.
Because if you're not happy in your own life
No.
and in your own decisions and in your own actions, and you're saying, well, I got to rely on someone else to do that. That is the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life. You have to have confidence in yourself. And that's what we call having faith. You have to spend the time by yourself to figure those things out. If you jump into the next best thing, then you're going to be losing your identity again, and you're going to find yourself making repeat behaviors.
Yep.
Because that's our comfort.
Bad decision after bad decision.
And it's just that domino effect. And I guess I like to think now, I'm glad that I have the time to put myself in check.
Absolutely.
And one thing I've gained from it is, you know, and like we talked about, it's okay to fail.
Absolutely.
But how you respond to that failure is going to define you, who you are in the long run.
Yep.
You know, if you're just out there chasing and forcing dreams and trying to put things into place and not letting them play, or you have this friend here that ties you into it, or you go to social media for it, you know, you may get that temporary relief.
Yeah.
But if you still don't have that confidence within yourself,
oh yeah,
that, hey, I can stand on my own 2 feet, I can take care of myself in my own.
I can do my own laundry. I can cook my own food.
Yeah, I
can pay my own bills.
I own my own home. I can pay my own bills. I own my own vehicle. I can provide my own insurance and all this stuff. And not necessarily if you can't provide all those own
correct.
things.
That's not bad. Right.
But if you have the confidence in yourself, and then it's like, okay, maybe I can entertain gaining some more friends.
Yeah.
Maybe I can entertain doing more of these things. Because you found that peace within yourself, not that yearning of desperation that, oh, I got to have something else and I got to have it now because I can't be on your own. Yes, you can be on your own. Because sometimes being on your own is the greatest gift in the world that you can have. And if you don't take the time when you're in that alone time to figure that out, boy, you may go through the next 40 years of your life never figuring it out. And there's probably so many people in the world that would like to be in a situation where it's just like, oh man, I wish I could have a clean slate.
Right.
I wish I had an opportunity to restart and recheck and rebalance myself. So many people don't get that. Right. And my heart goes out to those folks. But if you're someone that can find that balance and you can call yourself out for wrongdoings or keeping your ego in check, you know, by all means, do it, man.
Absolutely.
Listen to music. Try new things. Read a different kind of book. Look at a perspective coming from somewhere else that's not of our own bias.
Yes.
Because you can get trapped in that world. And if you just keep trying to force things, it's like quicksand.
Yep.
It's quicksand. You can sit and try, and the harder you try, you're just sinking down more and more because you're trying the same things that you were comfortable with. You have this ego, and it's always got you here, and I'm just going to keep going that. That's not working. You're sinking more. So you got to think of what's what I'm looking for here. The perception of the opposite of what your ego is, perhaps, and you can find solutions. If you don't find solutions to it, and you're sitting there and you jump into something and you still have a heavy heart, and that heart's still clinging, whether you still miss someone or you're still attached in some shape, form, or way, you can get yourself so bogged down in that. And then those things are going to continue to come back because you never had the opportunity to learn from it, to grow from it.
You've got to be able to shift and learn from your mistakes and continue on. And push forward and have that driving force and that driving nature.
100%.
Because if not, you're stagnant. In stagnant, disease grows.
Stagnant disease.
Look at mosquitoes. Mosquitoes excel and thrive in stagnant water. Mm-hmm. Mosquitoes carry disease. Moving water is safe water. Moving water that moves, does not propagate nearly as many pathogens and things like that. Stagnant water is where disgusting bile and bacteria grow. It's the same thing with your life. If you're stagnant, that's where disease takes root and grows. Mm-hmm. And not physical disease, or potentially, but not physical disease necessarily, but disease of the mind.
Yeah, and it'll sit there and grow and develop until one day you wake up and then all of a sudden it's 10 years down the road from where you were before, and you're like, why didn't I take that time 10 years ago to figure this out? Hopefully you figure it out then. Right. Maybe instead of figuring it out when you're 40, you'll figure it out when you're 50.
Maybe.
Did you lose some time? Yeah. Does that suck?
It's never too late.
But it's still not too late. It's never too late.
No. Never, truly. And it truly is never too late to learn something. It is never too late to fix the way you think. It is never too late to fix your behavior. It truly is never too late.
Well,
what's too late is never starting it.
Exactly. Well, there's this one quote that I found here. Maybe I told it to you, or I got to find it here. Boy, I read this and loved it. People who introduce you to new ways of thinking and new ways of seeing life are so important.
Who said that?
Anonymous.
Anonymous. Okay.
Anonymous.
I like that though.
And maybe someone has said it before and they just posted it here. Right. But it's like, I love that. People who introduce you to new ways of thinking and new ways of seeing life are so important. Now, that's not saying you have to agree with them.
No, exactly. You don't have to agree with them. You don't have to be like, oh, yep, they're 100% right. But if they're challenging you to be better, even if it's challenging what you believe and it's completely opposite, but recentering yourself in what you believe in, going, you know what? I'm going to take a hard look and make sure this is why I believe what I believe.
Yes.
That's still a positive.
One or two things are going to happen. Okay. It's either if you disagree with it, it's only going to add more strength to your argument. But if it's something you kind of agree with, and then that's kind of taking that ego and kind of bringing it down a little bit, and it's saying,
keep it in a little more check.
I never looked at it from that viewpoint before.
Right.
And sometimes those are the aha moments. It's either the aha that, man, you just proved my point and I can vindicate it.
Or it's the aha, I was maybe wrong.
Or it was the opposite of calling yourself out.
Correct.
I was wrong. Yep. And sometimes people don't like to admit they're wrong.
No. Most of the time, nobody likes to admit they're wrong. No one wants to admit they're wrong. That's a given.
Yeah.
Nobody likes being wrong. Sometimes you are.
Sometimes you are, and you have to.
You just got to deal with it.
Deal with it and come to the reality of it. Man.
Absolutely.
You can't sit. Let's say you get a divorce. I was divorced once, right? Things were going great before we got married. Ended up getting married. Well, we started learning a few things about each other and stuff like that. I think I was the one that was more all in.
Yep. I remember those times. 100%.
Yeah. But there's times when I'm sitting there, I was so confident, and I was like, nope, married now. It's all good. Yep. All this stuff's here. 30 years old, invincible. Nothing's going to go wrong. Nothing's going to go my way.
And you were wrong.
And I was wrong.
Yep.
I was completely wrong. Now, going through the process of a divorce, it grounded me.
Yep.
Oh boy, did it ever ground me. And I always tell friends, even to this day, well, you even helped me through them.
Mm-hmm.
the lessons I've learned from that experience are lessons that people will never learn unless they go through it.
Right.
And I'm not saying I want people that should go out and get divorced to go through it.
No, but it's adversity.
But it's that adversity where I called myself out.
Yep.
And you might have to do that multiple times in your life.
Oh, yeah.
Because you forget.
Yep.
Right? But you sit there, and I was so for sure, and I was... call it arrogance, call it ego,
whatever.
It's all going to work out. Well, and then this problem hit.
Yep.
Well, and then this problem hit, and then this came up, and then there was the uncertainties, and then there was people getting scared and all that stuff. And when I went through it at first, boy, it sucked, man. God, I was a mess. And I'm sitting there, and I had so much anger and built up at her, and I'm like, how could you? Yeah. All I wanted to do was love you. Just let me love you.
Right.
Well, no, because she didn't want to be loved by you.
And you cannot.
That's a hard pill to swallow, but I had to swallow it.
But you can't force someone else to appreciate the same things you appreciate.
The biggest lessons I've learned.
You can't force someone else to have your viewpoint. You can't beat someone over the head with what you think. Even especially if you can beat someone over the head, but they're not going to take it for one.
No.
And even if they agree with you, even if they believe like you do, if you're beating them over the head with it, they're going to quickly resent you for it.
Extremely resent you for it.
It's just not. It's arguing uphill. It's an uphill battle. It's just not worth it.
Right.
It's just not.
Well, and I think trust in that gut instinct feeling. Maybe for my ex, even though 4 or 5 years have passed since all that, things come under the bridge. I look back at that experience now, and it just didn't work out.
Yeah, different time, different age.
Yeah, I wish nothing but the best for her. I'll say prayers for her all the time. Her and her family. That's the kind of person I am.
Right.
At least I like to think I am.
The person you try to be.
The person I try to be. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where that humility piece comes in. That even though those dark times come, and you're sitting there and you're stuck and you're so indecisive, light's gonna come.
Yes.
But here's things you gotta have. You gotta have the willingness to accept your faults.
Yep.
You gotta have patience.
Yep.
You gotta quit trying to force shit to happen.
Yep.
And you sit and think, oh no, the past is gone. Now I'm on to this next thing here. And
you can't just jump from ship to ship to ship.
Yeah,
thing to thing to thing.
And it's new and it's gonna be great. That's not how it works. And every time in my life I've tried to force something to work, it's ended up kicking my ass.
Yep.
And that's what it does. But growing and healing, things like self-care. For me, just recently, I was terribly eating.
Yep.
Started eating better. Started drinking more water.
Yep.
I cut out drinking soda. I cut back on drinking booze.
Yep.
Right? I started going to bed at night. I started getting consistent exercise. I started journaling and writing and reading things that I normally wouldn't get myself into and even entertain, right? Yep. And I'm looking at things from different viewpoints. And as I'm going, I'm discovering these more things about me that I never knew I had before.
Right.
But if I wasn't in that dark place, that catalyst that had to happen to yank me out of that.
Right.
And now... Am I saying I'm 100% healed? No. I like to think I'm like 70% healed.
But there's always going to be work to be done. You're never going to be perfect.
Yes.
You're never going to be at a point to where you are the perfect version of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you are, then there's nothing else to achieve. Then why are you even here?
Yeah. What's the point of even, can you...
What's the point if you are perfect? You're not. Nobody's perfect.
No. Well, even Benjamin Franklin said, your work... as a person is what defines you.
Correct. Absolutely.
You can be retired and still work.
Yeah.
Depending on what that work is.
Correct.
Right. But your work is, and that's just, your energy is what is going to define you.
We are creatures of purpose. If you don't have a purpose, there's no reason for you to live. And I don't mean that in a way that if you feel that way, find purpose.
Yeah.
Find whatever that purpose is. Mm-hmm. If that purpose is you writing, if that purpose is you watching grandkids, if that purpose is you,
greeting strangers wherever you go.
Whatever your purpose is, it's a purpose. We have to have purpose. If we don't have purpose, we live for nothing.
100%. 100%. And I think that brings back in the humility piece,
Yep.
and it brings back in the ego piece.
Right.
If you're super egotistical, man, no one's going to want to be around you.
But the same thing with people who have no ego. If you're just super wishy-washy and you're just going with everything and you're just telling people they want to hear,
you're on the extreme end.
You're on the extreme
polarism.
end. You're two sides of the same coin.
The yin and the yang.
Yeah, it's just no one is going to enjoy it. Now, super egotistical people will rub people the wrong way a lot faster.
Yeah.
But people who are lukewarm and don't stand for anything,
right,
long-term wise, people find out and they almost they despise them just as much.
Yeah. There's the movie Gandhi. Did you ever see Gandhi?
I didn't want. No, I know who Gandhi is, but I've never.
Well, and there's someone in the movie Gandhi, and I watched it, and it's a great movie. I love that movie. But when you watch Gandhi, someone said, "Well, you're certainly an ambitious man." Gandhi responds back, "I hope not."
Yeah.
And I sat and thought about that for a minute, and he hopes he's not an ambitious man, because if you're too ambitious and you're so prideful,
right,
and you're so on top here, and I did this and this and this, and look at me and look what we accomplished. Gandhi wasn't looking at that for him. He wasn't a politician.
Right.
He never wanted to be a politician or an elected official. He just wanted people to wake up and call them out for their
right,
nonsense. He was willing to do it by fasting. He was willing to do it by peaceful protesting and civil disobedience. Fine, throw me back in jail. Go ahead. You're just going to make me more popular when you do it. But that was his purpose. And he knew it was there, right?
There's so many people throughout history who behave the same way.
I don't want to have any pride, man.
Martin Luther King Jr., Martin Luther, who he was named after during the Protestant Reformation.
Absolutely.
Nailing the
95 Theses
to the door of the chapel, or the church
in Wittenberg.
Things like that. There are so many people throughout history that, in their own way, stand up and stand for something.
Because it's like you said earlier, it's the right thing to do. You don't just play along doing the wrong thing, because then that's going to come back and eventually influence you.
Absolutely.
And that's going to hit hard.
Absolutely.
And you're going to be so far in quicksand, you're not going to be able to get your ass out of it.
Yep.
Because you're going to be so far deep, right? Now, whether people are a Gandhi person or not, but when you sit and think about it, and that pride, and the opposite of pride is humility.
Yep.
And I think if there is a sense out there that, if I have too much of an ego, and if there's people out there that think that of me, at least I hope I can think that I can identify that and pick up on those cues, and try and better myself. Call myself out on it. And that's what this time more recently for me has been, is this has been a time where I can be truthful to myself.
Yep.
If you can't be truthful to yourself, then who can you be truthful to?
No, nobody. Because no one. If you aren't judging yourself, other people will. Mm-hmm. So if you can't be honest with yourself, you can't be honest with anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. And people are always quick to judge,
Yep.
They could have this whole perception of how someone is, and that's not how they are at all.
Right. Yeah, preconceived notion about.
Oh man, he's always got a big smile on his face and saying all the right things and doing all the right things and dressed the proper way and has all this and and looks like he's successful. Deep down inside, he could be a complete schmuck.
Correct.
Or he could
a wreck,
or a complete wreck or a disaster inside. Or he could be the guy that's I don't know, wearing sweatpants and a t-shirt and wearing sandals and flip-flops, just sitting like, oh man, well, that guy must not have much going on in his life. Right. He must not be well put together and stuff.
He's probably the most secure person in the world.
He could probably be the most secure person in the world.
Yep.
So it's really hard to go to those judgments. Now, actions speak
louder than words. Yep.
Much louder than words. And when your actions start becoming to a point where they're noticeable, because you want positive attention, you don't want negative attention. No. If you start getting negative attention and it's consistent, oh man, I'd say try and eliminate that as quick as you can. That's when you really got to check.
Not care what anybody thinks about you personally, but also try to make sure a vast majority of people you interact with on the professional or the personal have an overwhelmingly positive opinion about you. Both those things are true.
Right.
Which is weird because they're almost counterproductive.
Well, it's kind of like the little, what's the little bunny's name in Bambi?
Oh, Thumper.
The Thumper,
Yeah.
you know, it's if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at
anything,
all.
yeah.
And there's times throughout life where I've had to catch myself on that. And it's just like, oh man, where did that come from? Why did I say that?
Right.
I don't know this guy. Now, if there's actions or something that triggers my brain that's saying, oh yeah, I don't know, this person
You should probably say something.
You should probably say something, right? But there's times when I'm sitting there and I'm just like, I guess it's trying to identify when knowing to speak up and when knowing to shut up.
Yep.
And sometimes when knowing to shut up is just as good. Sometimes it's like, you know what? Hey, I'm zipping it, closing it. It's not my business.
Yep.
It's out of my control. I'm going to pray for
It
you.
doesn't affect me in my life.
Yep. I'm going to pray
Good
for
luck.
you. Good luck. I hope the best. And you got to be honest with that. You actually got to want the best for them.
Absolutely.
Right? You got to be rooting for them. Karma will find us. And usually you get bad karma if you're, for use of another terms, if you're kind of being a bitch.
Yeah.
And then you're going to find, and karma's going to find you, right? So try not to be
You're not wrong. Like, I don't necessarily believe in karma, but it's the same principle. You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow.
You 100% reap what you sow.
So be careful what you sow.
Yeah, if you sow anger and hatred and malcontent towards your fellow man, that's going to be returned to you tenfold.
Or if you sow a heavy ego.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, if you sow a heavy ego, you're going to get that in return. Nobody's going to trust you. Nobody's going to believe what you say. People aren't going to like being around you.
Right.
You're going to receive negativity.
Or if you're on the low totem pole of the ego and you're too shy and you're not ambitious to go out there, well, people are going to ignore you.
Well, yeah, people are going to ignore you. They're not going to want to come hang out with you. They're not going to want to include you in things. They're not going to want to continue on with you because it's not worth it, for them. They can't be bothered by you. Two sides of the same coin.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good ending point.
Yep.
I think
we still have last thoughts, right?
Yes.
Yep.
So I think this is a good stopping point for us for this episode. Hopefully you guys have learned something. Hopefully we've sparked some thoughts in your head. If we can engage just the thought of maybe where you sit. Do you have an ego? Are you over egotistical? Are you under ego? Do you not have an ego? Do you have places in your life that you are confident, building your confidence? Where does your confidence need to be built? Internally looking, where do I need to remain humble? Things like that. Take these things into account, learn something from it.
Right.
We like to end these things with fatherly wisdom. Last episode, I should say, Aaron ended with it. We're gonna trade off back and forth. I'm gonna put a little bit of fatherly wisdom out there as a father. I believe you should be slow to anger. I think if you can find a way, and it's really hard.
Very hard.
Not only with children, but with people in general. You should be slow to anger. Yep. Try to understand why someone is coming at you the way they're coming at you. Be it if they're angry towards you, if they're just dumb. I find the hardest people to deal with are just stupid people. And I lose my temper a lot with them, and I'm trying to be better. I can't hold people to my standard because they will fail me every time.
Yeah.
So be slow to anger, and just keep yourself in check, and you will get so much farther in life than if you're quick to anger.
And don't be afraid if you need to take a step back, and you need to take a break, and you need to recenter yourself, take time away. I think it's important. You got to do it. And that's what makes a courageous person, is taking time for themselves.
Absolutely.
And at first, and I'm an impatient person. I've been impatient so many times, but I always need to know that I need to have the patience. And it's okay to know that I'm not always right.
Yep.
And probably 80% of the time, I am probably completely wrong.
Yep.
But I like that concept. Slow down. That's a good one, man.
Awesome.
I love that.
Well, my name is Zac. Thank you for joining us today on the Spillway.
I'm Aaron.
And hopefully you guys enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Get in the comments. Discuss our topic today. Discuss what topics you'd like to talk about in the future. And we will see you guys in the next one. Thank you very much.
One love, guys.